One of the things I have learned during my life, and rather old by now, is the injustice against you and the treatment of the Palestinians has been so wide and so deep that we can no longer just ignore what is going on. The problem is that Europe today is not really prepared to take any clear action when it comes to justice for the Palestinian people. I believe that this meeting is a sign that we are now going to organize ourselves better in order to protect the justice for the Palestinian people. Europe has avoided to do that for years, and the time is not really, the time is there now that something must happen which makes a difference. I think the first question is, what is the reason why there has been so little political action from Europe when it comes to this very obvious violation of basic human rights? I think one reason is the activities of the United Nations, or United States. The United States has protected the Israeli politics for years, and they have made it difficult for the European governments to take a clear action for justice for the Palestinian people. The United States and the influence of the United States, of course, is very much a key point when it comes to addressing the justice aspect for the Palestinians. Secondly, after the United States activities, I think one factor which has influenced the development and the lack of development is the way that the Israelis have managed to raise this issue in a way that makes it very difficult for European governments to take a clear action. They have referred to the Holocaust, and of course the Europeans have a responsibility there, and it's a very effective argument when it comes to not criticize Israel today. And many of the governments, including my own government, has been very uneasy when it comes to discussing really the situation for the Palestinians, because they felt that there is a risk that they will be criticized for being anti-Semitic. And I think that is a factor that we need to think through in order to counter, because it is a real factor in this. I think we have to try to understand what would be effective for the European governments to take a clear position. We cannot ignore that there is a problem there. We have an extremely strong case for ourselves, going back so many years. 77 years of occupation, an occupation which is a violation of the basic human rights, and is a clear position also from the agreed agreements for how to avoid human rights violations. Very strong arguments we have, and we have mentioned them already here now. But the question is, what do we do in order to secure that there will be some changes? I think one step is important, that there is a relationship and a contact and an ongoing dialogue between the Palestinians themselves and Europeans. And many in the here and refugees, of course, play a very important role there. But more of that, I think, is important. Another thing that we have to consider is the fact that the non-governmental organizations are very important. The non-governmental organizations are very important in Palestine and in Israel, but also in other countries. They are a key actor in this, and I think we should recognize that and support even more the information that we have in order for them to be strong when it comes to the actions they're taking. But they do a very good work, and when, as now has happened, that 6 organizations in the West Bank, Palestinian one, are branded by the Israelis as terrorists, it is important that there will be a response to that, and there have been some, but it has to continue, and the problems are not resolved yet. At the same time, I think it is very important that there is a clear relationship also with the Israeli non-governmental organizations, which are doing good job, very good job, and I am in personal relationship with a couple of them and try to encourage them to continue their work. Their situation is not easy in Israel. They are seen as negative, and they are undermined by the politicians, and therefore they should have more support on our side. I think there is one thing that it would be good if we could discuss honestly, and that is the situation when it comes to who is empowered among the Palestinians. For us who are sympathizers to the Palestinian cause, that is a difficult, because our feeling is, to be honest, our feeling is that the current government represented by the Fatahs is not up to state, up to really making a good work in order to protect the justice for the Palestinians at large. What can we do there? We are hesitating to raise this issue because it may well be used by the Israelis. They could say, look at that. Even they who are sympathizers in Europe, they feel that you are not really up to it. You have a bad government, so why should we have something to do with you? So the fact that the government is not functioning as we hope it will be, that they are also in some cases violating human rights, undermines the work we are trying to undertake in order to support the whole community of Palestinians. Our dilemma is that if we bring this up with strength and tell publicly what we really feel about this, that we will undermine something that we have no right to undermine. So if we could find a way to handle this very problem, it would be very important. And I think the diaspora, the Palestinian diaspora, has a very important role in this. I think also that it is important to take very seriously the possibilities that are there when it comes to protection of human rights and justice in the United Nations. The United Nations has all the important legislation that could be used for the sake of the Palestinians. But so far, there's something still missing there. And of course, the US and the Israelis are extremely skillful in trying to see to it that whatever is being done by the United Nations is not really working. And there is something there that we should consider. Think about, for instance, the case of the justice in The Hague, and based on the international convention there. When the issue of the actually not a very major role when it comes to the repression of the Palestinians. It was actually about a period in Gaza during the wars, one of the wars there, came up in this court in The Hague, it was investigated clearly, and it was being proposed that there would be a thorough investigation into this case, probably then make it clear that this has been a very serious violation of basic human rights. What happened? The United States government intervened and demanded that this work would stop, and the people within the court there who had tried to move forward on this case, they were accused by the United States government for doing things they shouldn't do. And this is the kind of happenings where I think that the European government, EU as a whole, could take a position and secure that this kind of attempt to make it impossible for the international structures to work for justice for the Palestinians, that we have to take seriously. But in all, I think a conference like this one is important. I think we should work together. We should use all the possibilities we have when it comes to international law, and there's a lot we could take from there. That we should see to it that the diaspora has a very active activities in this regard. So with that, I just would like to say that you have the support of a great number of people in Europe, I would say in all European countries, but they have had some problems in order to be effective, prevented by the US and the Israeli skill when it comes to making problems for us, but also the lack of courage within the government when it comes to stand up for the rights they do stand up for in other situations. So in that sense, the situation of the Palestinians is very unique, because if the similar things would happen anywhere else in the world, there will be a much stronger reaction than has been in your case. And I think the time is now there for us to try to consider what we can do to be more effective than we have been doing so far. So let's work together and see to it that something begins to happen, because this injustice should not be allowed to continue.